Hello, you're watching Breakfast with Nina Warhurst and Charlie State.
It is 8:35 now. Affordability checks and measures to slow down online casino games are some of the proposals expected to be announced in the long-awaited government policy document on gambling.
Now, campaigners hope the changes will make gambling safer following cases where customers have suffered huge losses or taken their own lives.
Well, we can speak now to Judith Bruney, whose son Chris took his own life at the age of 25 because of his gambling addiction. And we can also speak to James Grimes, a recovering addict and campaigner. Thank you so much to both of you for coming in. It's not an easy thing for either of you to speak about for different reasons. We don't know yet what's in this white paper, this government document, but can we start with you, James, and say, ideally, what would you like to see?
Well, we'd like to see some tough restrictions on advertising. We'd like to see the product be slowed down. At the moment, we all have an online casino in our pocket, which is essentially unlimited. You can spin thousands of pounds every second, so let's hope that gets reduced. Let's hopefully as well, there's a statutory levy on industry profits, which will fund independent research, education and treatment, and better health messaging about the risks, because the messages that I got and that many people got was stuff like, when the fun stops, stop. So let's see that nonsense messaging replaced by proper health messaging about the risks. Nonsense
messaging, just talk us through that. When the fun stops, you stop. What do you mean nonsense messaging?
Well, as someone that's been through addiction, that whole idea puts the onus of responsibility with someone with a mental health disorder to regulate their gambling. And the industry knows that it has no impact. Evidence shows that it has no impact. Actually, what people need to know that these are addictive products that are designed to keep people playing. The longer you play, the more likely you are to be addicted. So let's hope the NHS leads on that and really gets into some proper prevention work.
Judith, this is deeply personal for you. Can you tell us about Chris? Are you happy talking about that?
Yeah. Chris was he was a beautiful, kind, caring person. He had a very good job. He had everything in his life that any young person would be really pleased and proud to have. Unfortunately, he did get an addiction at a young age because he was allowed to go in a betting shop when he was 16, and on his first bet he won. But he did try many times to stop the addiction, but every time he tried, they just kept bribing him to come back. He could put high bets on, and they just didn't want him to stop gambling, so they just wouldn't leave him alone. So in the end, he couldn't take it anymore. He couldn't escape from it, even though he had tried quite a few times and he had stopped.
When you say, Judith, they just wouldn't leave him alone, it's such an important point, this, isn't it? What do you mean? Because often we hear this from people who have an addiction to gambling, is that they try and stop, but then the messaging is relentless.
Yeah. They just bombarded him with free this, free that, like VIP tickets to football matches. At one point, they even let him win BMW Mini, brand new Mini. They go to that extent to keep the customers, if you like. So when, you can imagine when you're trying to stop doing something what you hate, what you don't want to do, they will do whatever they can to get you drawn back in to gamble again, to get the money.
And there was nothing flagging in the system. This young man is betting too much.
No, nothing at all. So before he did actually take his own life, he gambled £120,000. They didn't intervene at all, which part of the current laws are that they should intervene, and break that, to give them a chance to think about what they're doing.
So it's not necessarily, James, that the law isn't in place at the moment. Judith's point is it's not always being followed, even before this white paper.
No, it's weak regulation that is being exploited by an industry whose business model is to make most of its money from people that are addicted or at risk. Similar story to Chris for me. 12 years of addiction. I had accounts with hundreds of different operators. Not at any point during that time did one ever ask if I could afford to lose the money that I was losing or once check on my well-being. Instead, they did exactly what happened with Chris, which was give me free bets, VIP schemes, 20 emails and texts every day. It's like someone's stalking you. And that is what we really want to stop, this predatory, incessant marketing that is really driving people to that point where they feel like they're trapped and they can't escape their addiction. And I can see so often why people get to that point where they don't feel like there's hope or help.
Because there's supposed to be, as the stakes escalate, there's supposed to be a statutory obligation for intervention.
Yeah, and the reports in about the white paper that there's going to be affordability checks at around £1,000 a day. Well, we're in a cost of living crisis. Who can afford to spend £1,000 a day on online gambling before they're checked whether they can afford to do it? So that needs to be much, much reduced as well.
Judith, it's a very brave thing you've done in talking openly about this. We'll wait to see what's in the white paper, but presumably there may be some, and I use these words very cautiously, some comfort for you if things do change, that will be something maybe better that's come out of something very bad for you.
It will be, but we've waited a very long time. Thousands of other people have died since Chris. Myself and Gambling with Lives and other campaigners have been campaigning for 6 years now. And the message I would like to get across to people out there who don't understand what the industry do. The risks are horrendous. Obviously people out there don't know my son, but he was the strongest person. He was just, the model young person, what anybody would want in their life, and he was so strong. And this happened to him. It can happen to anybody. And all the families that I've met since Chris has died, who've lost their young loved ones, they're not people who haven't got anything in their life. They're not people who haven't got jobs. They're totally the opposite. They've all got good jobs, good careers, good families. So just want everybody to know that, and it is getting worse. It's worse than when Chris was gambling.
Really appreciate your time with us this morning, Judith. We know it's not easy for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And James, thank you as well. We wait, of course, to see exactly what is in the white paper.
And such an important message, as you said, about Chris. It could happen to anyone, couldn't it? Thank you very much.